Well, hey there. It's Monday and time for another Monday Mastery. I'm author and dating coach Rick Soderbeer, and I'm here to help you navigate the waters of dating and relationships and trying to make healthy decisions about the people you date and the relationships you enter into. And it's I we're gonna have to be vigilant today. Oh, it looks like my signal. I may not have a good signal today because I am actually parked in my RV down in a low spot, and the service may be a little bit funky today, or the signal may be a little bit funky. If any of you are having problems, let me know, and I'll try to connect to a different Wi-Fi. But the one I'm on right now is generally my best bet. So if any of you have problems, let me know, because it's more than likely my fault, or on my end, because of where I'm parked. And I am in Central Texas right now, in the Killeen, Temple, Belton area, and rolled in here on Saturday afternoon, I guess, Saturday morning. And it's been a nice couple of days. We had a bit of a thunderstorm and tornado activity roll through yesterday, and that made life a little bit exciting. But I've got to see my daughter and my grandkids, and that's always exciting and fun to see how they've grown in the last year, because it's been about a year since I've been able to see them. So anyway, hey Liz, thanks for. It is breaking up a little bit. Okay. Let me see if I can. I was afraid that might happen. And if I can't fix it here, then what I will have to do is call it a night, because I have no other resources to. Let's see if this will work. And that doesn't look like it's any good to me, from the stuff that I. Liz, if you can see if that's any better. Otherwise, I can go to the other one. It's, uh, I'm in a service area that's just to, to deal with tonight. So hopefully it's working. If not, well, we'll just have to pull the plug on tonight and pick it up next week, where I know I'll have good service, because I will be in Kansas, the Kansas City area. So anyway, okay. Well, while I'm waiting, if anybody wants to pipe in and tell me if the signal is good on your end, let me know. I'd appreciate that, because this is no fun if it's not, if if you guys only hear every other word that I'm saying. And so anyway, last week I hit on a subject that seemed to be near and dear to a number of people, and I wanted to follow up on it a little bit, and that is the breaking up, and it and I was sharing conversations with sharing sharing conversations with you about a coaching client that I was working with, and his breakup, and it just wasn't a his relationship wasn't with this woman, just wasn't a healthy relationship. And there's a couple of things. A couple of you reached out to me since last week to talk to me about breaking up. And breaking up doesn't have to be chaotic and messy. If you do it correctly, it's pretty easy, and uh, not too messy. And breaking up, we all tend to get really crazy about walking away from a relationship. We get real nervous, we get anxiety, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But the flip side is that if we don't make that break, we're in a relationship that just isn't going anywhere. It's not making us happy, it's not making us feel good. And so you're in a mixed bag, as it were. And a that's never a fun place to be, where you're the one feeling all the anxiety, and because it's not a relationship that you want to stay in long term. It's not the healthy thing for you to do. And so at that point it's time to move on. It's and I folks, I'm going to stop here again. And are you getting a good signal from me? Is the streaming coming through okay? Because I'm seeing a really weak signal on my end, and if it's a really weak signal, then I'll try to make one or two more adjustments, but that's going to be about it. But I need your feedback, folks, because I can't tell. Hey Phil, thanks for joining in. Are you breaking up about breaking? Yeah, I am. And Phil, if you can tell me if you're getting a decent signal, that would be awesome. Liz, if you can tell me if you're getting a decent signal, that would be great. And anybody else, there's a couple more of you out there. If you can tell me what you're seeing, or what's happening to you, or what's happening on your end, I'd really appreciate it. But uh, let's see. Let's try this. Okay, I just changed to a different. Let's see. Let's see here. Hey Connie, thanks for joining in. There is a delay. Phil says it's okay on his end. I just changed to a different service again. Um, and Lisa said, "Hey Lisa, thanks for joining in." Says I'm coming in okay. Um, and Liz says I can hear you fine, just not lining up with the video, but it's okay. Okay, well that sometimes that's going to happen. There's going to be a delay, and that I have no control over, because that's through the streaming service that is handling tonight's broadcast. But anyway, thank you everybody for that input. And anyway, back to the topic at hand. It doesn't have to be a mess if you're walking away from a relationship. It doesn't have to get ugly. It doesn't have to get messy. The only way it's going to get ugly and messy is if it's on the other person. If they decide to get ugly and nasty, and you don't have to participate in that. Just remember, just because they say something, because they make a comment, because they call you a name, you don't have to respond. Half of the problems can be eliminated by you just not responding. And if it's getting ugly, if it's getting nasty, if you're having problems with an ex, or with someone in breaking up, it's a matter of blocking their phone number. It's a matter of blocking them on social media. They don't have to know where you are. They don't have to be able to contact you. You can even block them on email, where you won't even get their emails or messages, anything along that line. And while it's none of us really wants to do that, and some part of us always wants to hang on to that, a little part of that relationship, it's generally not a healthy thing to do. And when you try to hang on to something that's not good for you, it's only going to infect you more. And what I mean by that is that there's a part of you when you're in a relationship or when you're ending a relationship, you need to be able to cut those ties. You need to be emotionally free to move on. You need to be emotionally free to start healing, because you can't heal as long as you're maintaining some connection to that other person. You if you if if you're hanging on, even if you're convincing yourself, oh, we're just friends, we talk now and then, it's hanging on to a relationship that isn't healthy for you. And there comes a point in time that for you to move on, you have to let that go. And if that means blocking somebody, if that means disconnecting with them, or I guess for the lack of better terms, ghosting them after you've broken up. And do this after you've broken up. Don't ghost somebody to make it easy. That's the coward's way out. Don't text somebody that you're breaking up. Unless it's absolutely necessary. And there may be some situations, but they're very few and far between that will that where it would be a better idea to not have any verbal communication with them, because of they may try to talk you back into the relationship or talk you out of leaving. They may start becoming abusive and saying, well, it's all your fault, you didn't try enough, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Well, guess what? It doesn't make any difference. If you're not feeling comfortable in a relationship, if you're not feeling that this is a healthy relationship for you, guess what? It's time to move on. It's we all know what we're looking for in our next relationship, or at least you should. If you've listened to me long enough, you should know what's going on. You should know what you're looking for. You should be able to rattle off in a couple of sentences what you're looking for. You should have your must-have list and your deal-breaker list put together. And if they have anything on your deal-breaker list, or if they're missing anything on your must-have list, it's not going to be a great relationship, because I guarantee you, at some point down the road, you're going to regret not waiting. You're going to regret thinking that, I sure wish my partner had this characteristic or that trait. And after you've gone far enough down the road, maybe even gotten married, it's too late. And there's no sense in spending a year, 2 years, 5 years or more in a relationship that isn't the right one. I remember when I was in the later stages of my marriage, I remember feeling how empty I felt. I felt alone in my marriage, because I had started to recognize how the mistakes I had made in choosing whom I married. Now, that doesn't mean we didn't have some good times, and there were some great things that came from that marriage, including my daughter and grandkids. But it was a relationship that I spent probably the better part of 10 years walking on eggshells, and that's not a way to live in a marriage. And I want to make it crystal clear, I'm not trying to condone divorce. My whole premise is to try to eliminate divorce or reduce the divorce rate, because what I've discovered is that the primary cause of divorce is that we chose wrong in the beginning. I'm a prime candidate or prime suspect, because I chose poorly to begin with. I ignored the red flags that I saw. I was more interested in being in a relationship than I was about the quality of the relationship. And don't misunderstand me, the relationship was okay, but there were a lot of things missing. And and I'll admit I was young and stupid when we were dating, but I was still old enough to know better. And I know a lot of you have gone through this same thing. So the idea that you date somebody and you try to overlook or work around their flaws or your differences, and I don't want to say that they have flaws. They may have, but when you try to work around your differences, that can be a really dicey area. One of the worst things I see couples do before they're married is go to counseling. If you're going to counseling before you get married, oh, you're in for a wild ride in your marriage, because you're already seeing that hey, Geneva, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. If you're going to counseling or therapy before you're married, as a couple, you are just wrong for each other, and I don't care how much you love each other. You can love each other to infinity and beyond. It's still not going to be the right relationship. Love does not make it's not enough to maintain a relationship. You have to have compatibility in so many areas. You have to you have to have common goals. You have to have common morals and values. You have to have the connections that hey, Kathy, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. You have to be able to have a decent conversation. You should be able to talk about anything and everything. And if you have to go to counseling or therapy to try to talk to each other, or to try to make adjustments to each other to be able to hold a relationship together, I'm telling you, you're in the wrong relationship. Don't do it. Walk away before you try to change somebody, or you have to change for the relationship. Assuming you're emotionally healthy, there should be no reason that you have to change for your partner, and there should be no reason that your partner should change for you. Now, are there going to be certain things that you have to work through? Absolutely. There are going to be adjustments, but for major personality adjustments, no. You should be able to agree on what church to go to. You should be able to agree on major purchases. I mean, you should be able to talk about what you want to buy, what you don't want to buy. You should be able to talk about all the important things of creating a household together. Do you have to agree on which toothpaste you use? No. Should you agree on which way the toilet paper goes over the on the holder? Well, yeah, that might not be a bad idea, because you could drive your partner nuts if you're putting it on what they consider is the wrong way. But relationships have so many moving parts. Just because you may have physical chemistry or you may have an intellectual connection, it's not necessarily going to, or an emotional connection, like I just mentioned. Love is not enough. You've got to have so much more to connect with someone, to make a long-term relationship. There are several people in my life that I just absolutely love. Can I make a relationship with them work? Absolutely not. There are things that are too different about us that it's not, and it's not my place to go in and change them. It's not their place to come in and change me. The old, I think it was, what was it, Captain and Tennille, love will keep us together. No, it won't. And I wrote a blog about that, or an article about that last week, that it does take more than love. There's, in the beginning, you have more of an emotional love, and where it's an uncontrolled emotion. And then it develops into love being a choice, because there are going to be tough times in the relationship. There are going to be there are going to be ups and downs, and we depend on each other. If you're truly in love, you're going to depend on each other to take care of each other, to be there and be supportive of each other. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get upset from time to time. It doesn't mean that your toes aren't going to get stepped on, or your feelings aren't going to get hurt from time to time. But when you have the right connection, when you have that deep emotional impact on each other, when you enhance each other's lives, you're going to work through those things. And it's not going to be a lifetime of, well, you did this and you did that, and it becomes a battle of tit for tat. It's just not one of those. It's not a healthy relationship to live like that. And so that's why it's so important to be able to make better choices up front. And if you do make a mistake, if you do get sucked into a relationship, you don't need to make a big hairy deal about it. It's just a matter of, Jane, I hope there's not a Jane on here, because I'm not going to break up with you. Jane, I just don't feel a connection here. This is not the relationship that I'm looking for. It's, doesn't mean you're a bad person, doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It just means we're not a good fit for each other. And a mature adult is going to say, I'm sorry to hear that. I wish there was something I could do to make you change your mind, but I know that wouldn't be right. And that would be the sign of a great ending. Where they accept the fact that you have things that you're looking for that they don't have. And as mature adults, we should be able to accept that. It's the adults that are emotionally mature or emotionally damaged that haven't taken time to heal from other hurts and other problems in their lives, where it becomes an issue. And if they start retaliating, saying, well, in my case, I'll use me, well, Rick, you just don't know what you're missing. You just, you're giving up a great woman, and, you don't know all of, you've never given me a chance. Well, no, I have given you a chance. I've taken the relationship as far as I've wanted, and that's it. I don't see it getting any better, or making any significant improvement from here. And you're going to recognize that along the way. That you're only going to go so far. The relationship is only going to proceed so far, and then it's going to kind of fizzle out, assuming it's the wrong relationship is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking that every relationship is going to fizzle. No, every relationship will ebb and flow, and the emotions will rise and they'll fall, and you may not even ebb and flow on the same pace. You may one may be on an emotional high that they can't do enough for you, and the other's going to be on an emotional low that they can barely do anything for you. So you have to understand that those ebbs and flows in emotions and will impact the relationship. But when you're and again, I'm going to address the ladies. Ladies, when you're in the wrong relationship, long before you break up. But there's something in your DNA, and I'm not picking on you, but this is very common among women. You tend to stay in the wrong relationship way too long, whether it's for and I don't want to say ego, but it's for, I guess maybe a better way of saying it is a peace of mind that you gave every bit of yourself to that relationship and to make it work. But guess what? All you're doing is wasting valuable time trying to make something that's not right, trying to make it a functional relationship. And the only way you can do that is by changing the other person, or you changing dramatically. I know that when I was married that I had to change dramatically. I was not the same person at the end of my marriage that I was at the beginning. And I'm guessing that most of you have experienced that, and it took time after your divorce, or and sometimes even after you were widowed, to find out who you were or who you are, because you've morphed, you've changed to accommodate that relationship, and in doing so, you've lost a part of yourself. It's not easy to do, to start peeling back the layers. You have to go back to before you were married and say, well, what was my personality like? What were the things that I enjoyed back then? Have I done any of those things? And it's something we all, especially for those of us that are divorced, but even widows too, you have to go back and say, okay, who am I now? What do I want? Because now I'm on my own. And when you get to that point, you have to start evaluating what's important to me and what's not. Things that were important to you as a couple may not be important to you now as a single. And that's something that you have to discover, and only you can decide. I'm getting all kinds of glare. Let me do this. If I see a if I see a message pop up, I'll take my glasses off. But the important thing is to recognize when the relationship isn't right. And like I said last week, I'm a big fan of cut and run. Let's not invest a lot of time in wrong relationships. Let's let's end it. Let's move on. Let's take time to heal and grieve the loss of that relationship, even if it's only a couple of months old. It takes a little bit of time. You thought everything started out spectacularly, and then all of a sudden it implodes. That's never fun. I know I don't like it, and I can't imagine any of you like it. Unless you're maybe a serial dater, a serial monogamist. The serial monogamist, just as a person that doesn't take time between relationships to heal and grieve the loss of the previous relationship. They're jumping from one relationship to another and trying to maintain a connection and keep somebody in their lives so they're not alone. So they feel important or wanted or desired. And that kind of leads off into another rabbit hole. I posted on Facebook last week, and that generated some negativity from some people that in the comment was, or the meme that I posted was, you ladies ask, where are all the good men? Well, a lot of the good men are hiding because they don't want to be found by the wrong women. And number one, a lot of women took that the wrong way. They thought men were actually hiding at work, hiding in their garage, hiding in their basement, trying not to be found. But that's not what the meme meant. What it meant is that men are being guarded about who they're letting into their world. And ladies, what I'm seeing, and this is over the period of many years, that you tend, and ladies, I'm not picking on you. This is an observation. Ladies tend to want to have the guy do all the work, all the pursuing, most of the planning for dates and for the relationship. And then when they're finally comfortable, then they start opening up a little bit. One woman said, "Well, I'm not going to let a man into my life until he's proven himself and I can trust him." Well, and I understand that, but where is it that you're putting in effort so that he can trust you to let you in? Where is it or when does he get the benefits of his efforts? A lot of guys, me included, if I see that you're not putting in effort to get to know me, or get to build the relationship, I lose interest, because I don't want to fight this battle every day. I don't want to be slogging away and most guys, and Phil, if you're out there, and any other guys that are listening, if you're feeling the same way, say yay or nay. That, if we don't see some, at least some appreciation from the ladies, that we're going to move on. So the good guys can be right in front of you. They can be hiding in plain sight, and it takes time for any relationship to develop. But ladies, you can't expect the guys to do all the work, to do all the grunt work, and then try to reap the rewards at the end. When you decide that it's okay to let him into your life. It has to go both ways. And ladies, again, I'm not picking on you. These are just observations, and not just from me, but from a number of other uh, dating coaches, and that we talk and we observe what's going on, and those are some of the big issues that you have in trying to find a good man. It needs to be a reciprocal action. And Liz says, let's put this up. Liz says, it's rather foreign to be the pursuant, being the age I am, but it is kind of fun to do that now. Well, it's it Liz, and it's always fun to be pursued. Guys love to be pursued. You it shows us that that you have an interest, and there's nothing that turns guys on more. Assuming it's a pretty good fit. There's nothing that excites a guy more than being pursued, or at least showing a significant interest that you have in him. Where it becomes drudgery is when you're kind of ambivalent and saying, yeah, okay, maybe, I like you. Um, let's just remain friends for right now and just keep dating and see where things go. When we don't get any reinforcement, we start to lose interest in the whole process. And that's why I say that a lot of the good guys that you all are looking for are hiding, because we're tired of putting in all the effort and not seeing a lot of appreciation for it. There's only so much that guys are going to put up with before they say, "Yep, I'm out," and then move on. And then you're left wondering, well, what the heck happened? So I'm kind of you cluing you in there that stuff goes on. And I think pursuing, if we're going to call it pursuing, let's pursue each other. Let's if unless you blatantly see that it's not a good healthy relationship for you, or a good connection for you, then number one, be upfront saying, yeah, uh, Rick, it's just I'm just not feeling the connection. And that's all it takes. Oh, okay. Well, uh, you know, can I ask why? Well, I'm looking for this, and you're looking for this, and you know, and if you get those kind of questions, say, oh, okay, that makes sense. I've dated women that have told me, yeah, and I love them to death, and they said, nope, I have a couple of your deal breakers. Oh, okay, you know, so they're paying attention to what I'm saying, and that's a good thing. I like that. Be open and honest, and be don't be afraid to be honest about what's. Hey Anna, thanks for joining in. Just be honest about what's going on in your head, and so let's see. Phil says games people play. I don't mind testing relationships a little, and no, and And the relationship, testing relationships is always okay, but to push it to extremes where 3, 6, 9, 12 months into a relationship and she's not showing a significant interest, or she's not reciprocating any feelings, or it's just kind of you're kind of getting a lukewarm response. Then those are the times to say, yeah, I've had enough. And quite honestly, for any of you, I wouldn't recommend going much more than a couple of months. If you're not getting some reciprocal response, there's no need to stick around. And if let's see. Anna says, if it feels like I'm a game, if it feels like a game, I'm out. Period. And that's exactly right. And that's what I'm talking about. If you're not feeling the connection, if you feel like there's some game playing, or whatever other funky feelings you might be getting, it's time to walk away. It just, life is too short. We're all here for a very finite period of time, and there's no point in sticking around for the game players. And dating can be difficult enough without having to deal with the game players. But and I was thinking about this afternoon. You're all going to run into that. You all are going to run into people that play games. They're scammers. They're catfishers. Whatever name you want to put on it. They're out there. The romance scam game is a very, very profitable game for a lot of scammers. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar worldwide industry, and the burden of this falls on you to be able to recognize these scams. And I can only tell you so many. If you happen to be online or meet somebody, and it doesn't necessarily need to be an online scammer. There was a case in the Kansas City metro area a couple of years ago where a woman was bilked out of over $3 million in a romance scam, and he was they I don't know if they lived together, but they dated. They were local, or he was local also. And after the 3 million, I think he disappeared, but he got caught. But the point is, you have to be responsible for these for doing your due diligence. You need to check up on people. You need to do the best job that you can. If you're dealing with somebody online, if you're dealing with anybody that says they're in the military overseas, they're on an oil rig, they're a missionary overseas, that's an instant red flag that says, nope. And you just end that conversation now. I had a client that I worked with, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, that she got bilked twice. The guy she was talking to was, I don't know, in Nigeria, claiming to be a missionary, and he and his son were over there, and he got her to buy him $9,000 worth of computer equipment, and she shipped it over to him. He said, yeah, the equipment is here. My son went to get it, and he got robbed. Can you send it again? Well, she got this, and then she finally realized, I've been scammed. And let me get caught up here. So it is on all of us to be present and aware of what's going on, and the stories that people are telling us. And Connie says, I agree with Liz. I'm I'm 60 now and trying to find that line of pursuit. I have no problem reciprocating while not trying too hard. And you don't have to go out of your way, and that's a good observation, Connie. Thank you. You don't have to go out of your way, but you have to be open enough that you're willing to share what's going on in your life. You have to, and I don't mean you have to share bank accounts and bank information or investments, or, but you should be open enough to be able to talk about what's going on in your lives. In 13 years of being divorced, my daughter has only met one woman that I have dated in that 13 years. Because I'm not going to, and I've dated quite a few, and I'm not bragging. It's just an observation, folks. There was only one woman that I've been comfortable enough to introduce to my daughter. So we have to be careful about how far we let people into our lives. And I want to make sure that if I'm going to introduce somebody to my family, I want it I want to be relatively sure that this can be a long-term thing. A lot of you, and somebody was just telling me this morning, I was on a phone call with someone, and she said she had let him into her life, met the kids, met the family and relatives, and so she was very inclusive, but he was not reciprocal to her. So you have to watch these things, and for me, I have a general rule of thumb that I introduce somebody into my world after about 6 months of dating. I want to make sure that I know you pretty well before before I'm sorry, I'm starting to scan messages here. So let me just dive in there. Anna says, "Wow, we've got to be careful." Absolutely, and there are scammers, but see, it's our responsibility, again, Anna, to recognize them and to be able to pick up on that stuff. And if you do dating enough, you'll learn how to recognize the scammers very quickly. A lot of them don't speak fluent English, and so even if they're texting, you're not getting you're not getting a recognizable sentence. I just had that happen to me this weekend. I met somebody online, and I asked her how she was, and instantly I recognized she was of Spanish descent, and nothing wrong with that, but she didn't speak English well, so she wrote more like she spoke. And it was just a no-go for me. I'm not going there. So Phil says, the book Games People Play by Eric Byrne, I'm assuming that's Eric Burney, MD, about human relationships. Yep, that's whenever you start looking at, there's a lot of great information out there. And Connie says, it is good to hear there are others with longevity of being single like me. I know that we are healthy and whole in our singleness, and that's a great observation, Connie. I appreciate that, because one of the things that I've come to realize, and this is even from personal experience, that we have to get healthy, we have to get whole before we can really go out and date in a healthy manner. I remember getting divorced, and boom, I was off to the races. And within the first month or two, I was out with some friends and met some ladies, and we started talking. We're divorced, they're divorced, and they asked how long I was divorced, and I said, yeah, it's like 3 months. And they just looked at me and said, "Oh my, fresh meat," and they were right. I was still raw, and I found that over time, I've, rather than jumping from one relationship to the next, I've found that, and again, this is from personal experience and from coaching and seeing how other people, how other people's lives improve by just taking time to heal and recover from the loss of any relationship. And you know that you're really getting into the right place when you get to a point where it's okay to be alone. It's not that you want to be alone, and it doesn't mean you're not going to get lonely. It's going to happen until you find that special someone. But trying to rush the process, trying to dive into a relationship just because you're lonely is not a healthy way to proceed. And my whole premise here is to keep you out of bad relationships, or help you get away from the unhealthy relationships. And I'm not saying that they're unhealthy in really toxic or abusive ways. It can just be that it's a mediocre relationship, and it's not going to be it's not the relationship of your dreams. And unless you're in that relationship, your soulmate relationship, your extraordinary relationship, you're with your forever love, however you want to phrase it, it's all the same to me. It doesn't make any difference. It all means the same thing. You're looking for that one special person that enhances or you should be, that enhances your life and makes you want to be a better person every day. And when you meet somebody like that, and I've met a couple of women in the last 12 or 13 years that have done that for me, that made me want to be a better man every day, that have made me want to do things that I wouldn't normally do just because it put a smile on their face. It's those are the types of relationships we should be looking for. Now, just because you find somebody like that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work out. All these pieces have to come together. They need to have all your must-haves and none of your deal breakers. None, zero, zip, nada. And that doesn't mean even when they don't have any of your deal breakers, or they display everything that you have on your must-have list. It doesn't mean that gremlins aren't going to climb in and mess things up later on, because life happens. But you have to be able to have an intellectual connection. You got to be able to talk to them. You have to share similar morals and values. You need to have a spiritual connection. I've received some kickback on this from time to time, that if you need to be on the same page spiritually. If you're a Christian, be with a Christian. If you're a Jew, be with a Jew. If you're a Buddhist, be with a Buddhist. If you're agnostic, be with an agnostic. Don't fall in love with somebody. Well, we can't necessarily control who we fall in love with, but we can control who we end up in a relationship with. So, if you're falling in love with somebody that's a polar opposite, it's time to walk away before you invest too much time and emotional energy in this relationship. And Anna, you said, you asked, what if they do? And clarify that for me, if you don't mind, please. Are you talking about, I'm just looking at your other comments here. Are you talking about if they have deal breakers, or if they have issues that are going to be a deal breaker for you? And if that's the case, then let's see. Okay, so if they have any of your deal breakers, well, Anna, what I've found is just through normal conversation, everyday conversation, you can discover problems. But there's also another way of going about this. If you've dated for a little bit, you know, you can both go over what your must-haves are and what your deal breakers are. And and I'll use my deal breakers. Mine are cats, tattoos, and pornography. Those three. Mine are pretty simple. Cat lovers don't hate me. I'm just not fond of cats. It's just me. Cats. There's plenty of cute cat videos, and you can watch those together to your heart's content. But it's not a pet for me. Tattoos. I've seen some great artwork in tattoos, but it's not for me. It's not something that I want to see on my woman. And so each of you are going to have your own deal breakers. And Anna, to my point here is that I don't need to come over and inspect your house. I'll see pictures of you online with your cat. I'll see pictures of you on social media or on your online profile that'll be displaying a tattoo. And I'm not saying you personally, but those are so for me it's just an automatic swipe left, and that's okay. And you all have the right to do the same thing, but just simply by being observant, you'll find most of your deal breakers very quickly. It's and I as far as pornography, if somebody has a real problem with pornography, yeah, that might be a little bit harder to find. But I find that just having decent conversations about that subject is pretty clarifying. You can start asking questions. You can start observing. You can and then listen to their answers. Are they hemming and hawing? Are they trying to justify something? Are they? And it doesn't necessarily need to be pornography or cats or tattoos. Whatever your deal breakers are. It could be a temper. It's if they've got a temper, you can observe that by going out, and if they get upset with the wait staff, if they get upset with people that are taking care of them, that are serving them, I guarantee you there's an issue there that will rear its ugly head in a relationship. It's just not going to appear right now. So it's a matter of being observant and just paying attention to the subtleties of what they say, what they do. Do their words match their actions? That's a great one. Anna says, "I see the point." So yeah, it's and we have to learn. It's our responsibility in the dating world to make sure that we're paying attention. It's not on. It's not solely on the other person to prove who they are. We need to pay attention and look for any of the signs. And I don't mean you need to be sitting there with a magnifying glass and just waiting for them to screw up. That's not what I'm talking about. People that are trying to be deceptive. Hey, Kathy, thanks for joining in. Kathy says, "I'm astounded that cats are a deal breaker." Well, it's just who I am. And just like for some people, dogs are maybe a deal breaker. It's and for some, you know, drugs are a deal breaker for some people. They are for me too, but I've reframed that in my profile um, to be a must have, must be smoke and drug free. So but if I see somebody smoking and it's that's an instant deal breaker for me. Or if I'm online and see them holding a cigarette, guess what? Next. So but we all have to be that. We all have to be. in tune with what we want, what we're looking for, and we have to be in tune with the potential scammers. And if you don't know what scams are going around, just do a quick Google search. Google search. Do a Google search for romance scams, or the latest romance scams. And the FBI even tracks this stuff. So the information is out there, and they'll tell you what the latest and greatest, the latest and greatest romantic ploys are. And if you get involved with somebody like this, they are so smooth. And the funny thing is, you may not be talking, if you're just texting, you may not even be talking to the same person every day. They've got boiler rooms, what they call boiler rooms or bullpens, that that whoever's up on deck that day, or whoever's up on cue that day, will be doing all the texting. They'll go back and read what was talked about before, and they are very smooth. You'll never know the transition. So anyway, I hope that's given you guys some food for thought today. One of the, like I said, breaking up doesn't need to be chaotic. It doesn't need to be messy. But when we're dating, we have to be vigilant and pay attention to the people we're talking to, the people we're dating, and don't hang on to the bitter end. It's just a waste of time. When you start seeing things that aren't right, you start feeling uncomfortable. You start, and you may even date somebody that brings something to mind that you hadn't even thought about as being a deal breaker, but you recognize it as a deal breaker, and then when you get home, add it to your deal breaker list. So anyway, if you got any more questions or any more comments, shoot those in real quick. Otherwise, we'll just kind of wrap up today. That this hour has flown by. It's just absolutely flown by. And thank you for all the great comments and okay. Hey, Kathy. Thank you. Kathy says, I understand. I'm not a cat person either. Yeah, it's just, and don't misunderstand me. I have friends that have cats, and, a friend of mine has barn cats, and I'm always, especially in nasty weather, I'm always checking on those, excuse my language, on those damn cats to make sure she's feeding them and that they're staying warm and that they're okay, that they're surviving the winter. And Connie says, how many top deal breakers would you suggest narrowing it down to? I would not have more than half a dozen, Connie. If you have more than half a dozen, what I suggest is that you review your list and see how many things you can change over to must-haves. And I'll use smoking as an example. A lot of people will say no smokers. Well, let's think about it for a hot minute. That when you say no smokers, what's the immediate picture that comes to your mind? Odds are that you picture somebody smoking. So when you say no smokers, that's what you're focusing on. Guess what? Those are the people that you're going to find. Those are the guys that you're going to find. And by the way, I'm just looking at your picture here. It looks you're at the gun range. I'm impressed. Anyway, so what I would do or like I've done, is I've taken no smokers or no smoking and converted to must be smoke free. And that way, when I say must be smoke free, what is the picture in your case? What is the picture of the guy you're looking for? He's probably healthy. He's not holding a cigarette. So if you've got more than half a dozen deal breakers, I would see if you can go through and see how to flip those. And if you want, just shoot them to me, and I'll give you some ideas on how to flip those. And yes, sir, gun range. I like the terminology. Okay. Well, and I hope that helps. And Connie, like I said, if you have questions on how to flip those, and just drop me a note and say, Rick, these are some of the things that I have on my, and for the rest of you can do this too. If you have any questions on how to convert a, a deal breaker to a must have. It's just a matter of looking at it it's the same coin. It's just looking at it from a different side. And the reason that is so important is that you want to focus on the positive. You don't want to focus on the negative. And study after study after study has shown that when you focus on what you don't want, that's exactly what you find. But the same thing is true when you focus on what you do want. That's what you start to find. It's like if I told you, don't think of a pink elephant. What's the first thing that you're going to think about? Don't think about a pink elephant. Don't think about a pink elephant. Don't think about a pink elephant. You're going to think about a pink elephant, and you can't get that picture out of your mind. It's how our brain works. So so we need to again focus on the positive. If you go to a car dealership and you're looking for a red car, guess what car you're going to see on the way home? You're going to see the model, and you're going to see, and if you're looking for a red car, you're going to see all kinds of red cars on the way home. That's just the way our brain works. So with that, let's wrap things up. I hope this was helpful, everybody. And thank you all for joining in. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your input. And I will see you next week. I will be back on the road over the weekend, and I will, by that time, by next Monday, I will be in the Kansas City area. So I'll be broadcasting from the Kansas City area. And I hope you all have a great week and a fun weekend. And it'll be Happy Easter. I get to wish you all a Happy Easter because that's next Sunday. So anyway, have a great Easter, and I will see you next Monday for Monday Mastery, and we'll be live at 6 o'clock right here, the same Bat Caves and same Bat Channel. Anyway, have a good one, everyone. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in today.